Joey Petersen of the Tennessee Football Talk podcast recently joined us to talk about Tennessee football this upcoming season. Here, we talk about SEC Media Days, we talk about the Tennessee football roster as a whole, the quarterback battle, as well as DGG and where he will sign. Make sure that you check out this video and follow Joey on all social media right here on the Fanatics Show. So let's go right on over here and let's bring in our special guest, Joey Petersen from the Tennessee Football Talk podcast. Joey, how you doing tonight, man?
What's up, boys? We're doing good. It's a little hot down here in Dallas, Texas. Not gonna lie, we're sitting about a 104 all day long. So we're warm, but we're good. We're excited. We're ready for football season.
I hear that, man.
Dallas, Texas. I'm a ask just because I actually spent a year out there in Texas. Were you born and raised Dallas? What got you out there?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Arlington. Actually born up in the Northeast, but very quickly parents made their way back down to Arlington. Parents are both from Texas. Mom's Houston, dad's Fort Worth. And then when I want to go to college, I wanted to get out because don't love the weather, don't love how flat everything is. And so that was part of what was so appealing to me for Tennessee, kind of in my college choosing, time and time when I was going around visiting different places. And then never thought I'd be back just because I loved life in the Southeast, but then found an opening at Chat Sports, and their office happened to be down in Dallas. So they offered me a job, and I was like, all right, sweet, looks like I'm going home.
That a boy.
Yeah.
There's your softball lob. Now Michael's going to ask you the hard questions.
But now, first, before we just get into too much stuff, why don't you introduce yourself, kind of tell the folks what you do. You already mentioned a little bit that you're working for Chat Sports there, but tell a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so I've been at Chat Sports for 2 years now, a little bit over that. I am a host for 3 channels. I cover the Green Bay Packers, the Baltimore Ravens on our NFL side. We cover all 32 NFL teams. And on the college football side, of course, Tennessee Volunteers. Kind of starting to grow our college football coverage. I think we're sitting around 8 total channels, 7 total channels right now in the college game. Most recently added Notre Dame and Oregon this year, added Tennessee last August. And so I'm coming up on, I believe it was actually July 31. It was the day Celeste Moa committed, was my first ever show for Tennessee Football Talk. So coming around a year of covering the Vols and for Chat Sports, and man, have absolutely loved it. It's a sweet gig. I work with about 45 dudes, and it's a good time in there. It feels a little bit like a frat house, but we have fun.
Yeah, that's great, man. And congratulations on coming up on the 1 year mark. So looks like you're doing pretty well for yourself there on the Tennessee Football Talk channel. So I know it was just recently that we kind of met up on the X account and started talking a little bit there. I asked you if you'd come on with us sometime, and man, I appreciate you being willing to do that.
Of course, man. I love getting to do this. Join some guys' spaces. Jason Williams a couple of times, during last football season, a little bit early in the off season. So, getting to come on and chop it up with Tennessee fans always is fun. I don't get to do that often down here in Dallas. So, anytime I can, I'm down for it.
Yeah, we'd be more than willing to have you on at any time. So, let's get right into talking about some Tennessee football. So, obviously, Media Days was yesterday. Josh Heupel was the last one on the podium. What are some of your thoughts on his comments from Media Day yesterday?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things, the most surprising thing was probably the thing most people are talking about, the Lane Kiffin comment. I, for one, loved it. And not necessarily because it's like, he's taking shots at Lane. But I love seeing a little bit of personality. I think we all agree. Coach Heupel is Mount Rushmore of coach speakers in college football. That dude can say so much without saying absolutely anything at all. It's a superpower of his, and it's funny. It frustrates us, but like if we were in his space, we'd probably do the exact same thing as well. And so to see a little bit of his personality, see a little bit of his fire, see a little bit of the, competitive drive. I'm sure some of that stemmed to what went down during the offseason, early January. Lane flew, was posting all the way from, Knoxville Airport and going to get and talk to Sam Levitt. I'm sure there was a little bit of that involved in it as well. And, I mean, he's a competitor at the end of the day. And I still think it probably stings him a little bit, throwing that all the way back to 2021 when, they couldn't beat Lane when he came back with Ole Miss. The checker game, the trash game, the mustard game, all that stuff. So it was that was definitely the biggest takeaway, I think, from what Heupel said, just getting to see a little bit of personality, a little bit of fire. Because, hey, man, I think this team needs it. I'm not going to say this team folded last year, but I also think, I would have loved to see a little bit more fight, a little bit more personality, a little bit more fire out of all 22 of the starters last year. So, hey, you go as your coach leads you.
Absolutely, especially in the fourth quarter of the season, really. The coach speak. Tennessee's found their ways with the head coaches lately in the last decade or so with coach speak. But, yeah, the fourth quarter last year definitely disappointing. I mean, you had kind of everything out in front of you. You just had to go take it. You had a very winnable game against Oklahoma and a game in which you probably had your worst offensive game, arguably, of the season. Just couldn't take care of the ball and then kind of let that one spiral, snowball effect, whatever you want. And then the Vanderbilt game played a really decent first half, but let the very end of the first half kind of get to you, and then you never really responded in the second half. So I think you're spot on there, Joey. I kind of want to ask about media days. The 3 Tennessee players that represented the university. Your thoughts on the 3 players? Did you agree with it, and how do you think that they performed on the podium?
Yeah, I think it's hard. When you make that decision, you want to choose guys who are looked at as leaders, guys who are well liked, but also guys you can trust to do hours and hours and hours of media on a Monday in July. And so there's a lot more that goes into that decision. Obviously, I think with the picks from a play perspective and leadership perspective of Deshaun Bishop and Arian Carter, those are probably 2 guys I would have gone with as well. And then, adding in Jeremiah Thielander, although we might not, love his down-to-down play for Tennessee, or at least last year, he's a guy who's been in this program for a very, very long time. So, I don't have too much to say about the guys that they chose. I think one of the coolest things that stood out to me was what Arian Carter was talking about with the defense. Obviously, you get the clip and the headline of, it's going to be mayhem. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. What I loved was him talking, pretty quickly and not for very long, but about him possibly taking some snaps off the edge. That absolutely fires me up. And for multiple reasons. Obviously, I think Arian's an athlete. And I think at the end of the day, when you have a linebacker room as deep as Tennessee's is, and you have an edge rusher room as shallow as Tennessee's is, you just go ahead and you get the athletes you want to get there out on the football field. Because sometimes it's about having playmakers. It's about having guys, that you can trust to go out there and make a stop, get to the quarterback if you need them to. And I think Arian has showed a little bit of that, in his ability to rush the passer from that linebacker spot. He's got the size sitting at 235 pounds, 6'1". Don't know the arm length. Probably going to look into that sometime along the course of the week if I could even find something like that. But, man, I think just with the question marks around Tyree Weathersby, you've never seen Jordan Norman play in the SEC, and you've got so much talent in that linebacker room, man, go flex Arian out there. Bring Edwin Spillman up and run, him and Amari Campbell out there at the linebacker spot and get Arian on the edge. I think that's something that would really, really excite me.
You got to put your best 11 on the field.
Yep.
So you got to figure out a way to do that. And I think Jim Knowles and this defense, they're going to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, we were just talking a couple weeks ago about the linebacker room and just how deep it is and how much talent you've got there. I mean, you've got guys like, obviously, Arian Carter is going to be one of your starters, and then Jeremiah Thielander is going to probably be out there as well, and then just the many others that you got in the room. I mentioned that one of my breakout players was probably going to be Jaden Perlotti this year.
Yep.
And, that's a guy that if you don't move one of those guys up to an edge rusher because of the lack of depth there, that's a guy that might not get as many snaps as you think. This is the
100%.
opportunity that if you move Arian to that edge rusher more, hey, you could bring in Perlotti, who really came on down the stretch last year, to be on the field more. And I think that's probably one of your best 11 guys on the field at that point.
Yeah, I love the way he plays without any kind of resolve for his own body, without any care in the world
Fearless.
Of what happens to him. And I don't know if there's a lot of people that play like that anymore. He reminds me of one of those guys that would have fit on a Nick Saban defense back in 2010. And I think those are the kind of football players you want, obviously. I think he's got a lot of positional versatility to him as well. I know I talked about it in a show this past weekend of possibly going and throwing him out there in the bandit safety role. That's something we've seen from Jim Knowles, whether his days at Oklahoma State, his days, at Ohio State, just kind of a bigger, linebacker, bigger safety, I should say, that has more inside the box responsibilities, but is athletic enough to, be in coverage. He showed that in high school. He played the safety position there. And again, it's about depth. It's about getting your best players on the field. You already mentioned, man, he's buried on that depth chart. It's not because of him. It's because of talents that's there ahead of him. Like, we were at the point, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, where when Aaron Carter announced that he was going to the draft, and then you added Amari Campbell, even when he came back into the portal, I was like, if he comes back, sweet. If he doesn't, you're fine. And you would have been fine. And so, man, do what you can. Get the good players on the field. TJ White, the 4-star freshman, is another guy that really intrigues me. I've done a couple of comparisons to him on my show about he and Trayvon Walker, or Jalen Walker, former Georgia Bulldog, former top 15 pick in the NFL draft to Jacksonville. Or to Atlanta, getting the Walkers mixed up. But very similar sizes. Two guys that, are freak athletes. He has crazy long arms, TJ White does. Like, they're already, as long as everybody in this last draft, except I think Keldrick Falk out of Auburn, and I think Joshua Joseph, same arm length. And so he could fit there, man. There's endless possibilities. I'm just excited to see what Jim Knowles feels like is best for these young, talented players.
I'm glad that you brought up the true freshman on the team. I mean, both offensively and defensively, just the whole 5-for-5 thing. I kind of want to dive into that with you. How much do you think the linebackers, maybe moving Arion Carter down to the defensive line? I mean, a part of that, and it kind of, I'm going to go to basketball, even though I'm not a basketball guy, but I understand that, like, Rick Barnes is kind of in a similar situation where if a player were to come back, how much of this is also roster management? Because if you don't get those players on the field, or you maybe promise them something during the recruiting, like, you're also trying to, obviously, every year, you're having to recruit the same players that are even on your team. So how much of this do you think, just putting your best 11 on the field, obviously is most important, but how much do you think roster management goes into play here?
I think it's huge, and I think that's a big part people are ignoring when it comes to the quarterback battle, which I'm sure we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But, man, I think that's a massive part of that. And I don't think that's being talked about enough. But in terms of everybody else on this roster and everybody else in that room, man, it's massive because you're right. Jaden Perlotti knows the skill set he has. If he looks, back at 2 years in this system, 2 years in Knoxville, and he's not really been playing many meaningful snaps, how inclined is he to want to come back, especially with the alluring offers that will most likely be in the transfer portal for him? I think that's a big reason of why you've seen this coaching staff address the 2027 class the way that they have. Now, of course, it's hilarious saying that, knowing the fact that they're probably about to give an 18-year-old $2 million a year in David Gabriel George, right? It sounds a little bit ironic, but you, other than him, have one player in the top 100, right? You're hovering around 30. If you add DGG, you'll jump up to probably the early 20s. But still, from an NIL allotment standpoint, that class is going to be far cheaper than what 2026 was. And that was on purpose. Yeah. I think they did that because they know the real young talent they've got on this roster. The David Sanderses, I'm sure they'd love to have one of the wide receivers back for another year next year. The young linebackers, the young, cornerbacks. There's so many guys that they want to make sure could possibly come back in 2027. I think their strategy in recruiting has been, okay, get the talented players you can, but don't overspend in high school because so much of it's roster management and just keeping guys in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Michael, there's a chance. I mean, he kind of brought up a good point there. The 2027 offense, there's a chance Tennessee can line out their 4 or 5 stars.
Yeah. And, we were talking about it going back to last season, basically everything is lining up for 2027 to be the year for Tennessee. You got Faison Brandon would more than likely be the starter in 27 if he's not this year. You've got the talented wide receiver core. You've got all sorts of talent at offensive line as well. And plus, now that you've got Jim Knowles, and he'll be in the second year of his defense, and he normally makes a big jump from year 1 to year 2, his defenses do, everything's lining up for 2027 to be the year for Tennessee to go out there and compete. And it would be a disappointment if they don't go out there and win something, or at least, get into the playoffs. But, obviously we're still talking about 2026. And I want to ask you, Joey, because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of everyone saying, Tennessee is not going to be successful this year because of the inexperience at quarterback. They're going to go, Vegas had it at 7.5, the overall win total. Forget the quarterbacks right now. Because when you look at this roster, you've got a 1,000-yard rusher coming back from last season. He's an all-SEC this year. You've got you've got 2 wide receivers that were in the top 5 in the SEC last year in receiving yards. You've got the most returning starting production from any offensive line in the SEC coming back. And then you've got a tight end on the offensive side of the ball that if he stays healthy, that is an all-SEC guy, possibly an All-American. And let's not forget about, obviously Jim Knowles coming in, bringing in all this talent, not much experience at Tennessee, but loads of talent on the field at other locations as well besides Tennessee. Your thoughts on this team this season, just forget about the quarterback. Look at the rest of the roster there.
You're not going to ask about the quarterback? I know he's just dying to talk about the quarterback position.
No, we'll talk about the quarterbacks, but I want to talk about this
Thank
first.
you, Skylar.
No, I know. He's over there just holding his mouth. Like, I get it, bro. I'll ask it next. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, let's talk roster. First off, I'm so fired up. You mentioned Ethan Davis.
Yes.
I think Ethan Davis is far and away the best tight end Josh Heupel has ever had going into a season. Now, obviously, big question marks around his health. Can he stay healthy? If he can, Josh Heupel has never had a tight end that has quite the yards after catch ability. In fact, I just can't remember the last time Tennessee has had a tight end with that much excitement around his ability to make plays after the catch. Miles Kitselman, great blocker, great leader, sure. When he caught the ball, he looked like 2016 Jason Witten, where he just went down on first contact, right? And Princeton Fant was good. Jacob Orm was good. Colin Caskles, those guys were good. Ethan Davis has the ability to be great. And so I think that's such an underrated part of this offense, especially when you add in the fact that you will have a first-year starting quarterback. And a lot of times, tight ends are an easy check-down safety blanket option for those guys. I mean, think about, I automatically think, a guy like Dak Prescott, his rookie year in Dallas, had an unbelievable season. A big reason of that is because he was able to have a safety blanket that he could go to in that tight end room that, allowed him to have a lot of success. And I think that's going to be big for those young guys. But, man, the talent on the offensive roster is so exciting, and I look at it in 2 ways. I look at it in, number one, you could not really pick a better roster to surround a first-year starting quarterback with. 100%. But then I also look at it like that's the angel on my shoulder, and then the devil on my shoulder is like, yeah, but what if you would have gotten Joey back? Like, what could this team really have been? What's that ceiling like? And obviously it's exponentially higher just because Joey's, a massive amount of starts he's played in college football. But if you were to tell me, hey, you have to have one roster to start a first-year starting quarterback with, I think this is it. You got the talent running back, wide receiver. You got playmakers. You got guys that can get open. And you've got the most important part, which is the protection aspect of everything. Very curious from an offensive standpoint how Tennessee is going to handle scheme-wise this year. Because I think last year we saw a little bit of a regression and a little bit of a change into more of a pro-style system, which I'm sure you guys have talked about a ton. I've talked about it on my shows. More condensed formations, some under center stuff, less tempo, just more, pro-style, less normal Josh Heupel, what we would expect. Now, my question is, was that because he knew Joey Aguilar could do that? Or was that because that's where he believes this offense should be moving forward? Because if it's the former, right? If it's he believes it was because of Joey, then do we see kind of a look back into 2022, 2021, where it's a lot quicker and kind of relying on tempo, wide splits, wide receiver choice routes? very interesting to see that. But, man, from an offensive roster standpoint, very excited about it. Defensive roster, we've already talked about the linebacker room. You're getting Ty Redmond back. I think he's a really exciting prospect. I like Kayan Lee a lot. I think Quay Moss is one of my favorite underrated additions. I think the safety room is going to be exciting with Metcalf, Dezon Lane, Idris Farouk has been talked about a ton. The steps he's taken. The defensive line scares me. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you guys. I think the starters on the interior
I think the interior is going to be good, but it's the edge rushers I feel like is where we're going to see the question mark, and that's something we hadn't seen for a Tennessee defense since Heupel got in here.
Yeah, I know. And look, the interior is incredibly solid at the top. Xavier Gilliam, I think he has a chance to be one of the best interior defensive tackles you've seen at Tennessee, and then obviously David Hobbs, but we know Hobbs has a lot of injury concerns, and he has every single year. And what does that room look like behind him? Is Nathan Robinson going to step up? Or it's a bunch of question marks. Sure, they got recruited a long time ago to be able to be productive, but we haven't seen it yet. So that's a question mark right now. And then obviously with the edge rusher position, I like Jordan Norman. How's he going to be in the jump from Tulane to an SEC school? I've heard a lot of great things coming out of spring ball about Tyree Weathersby. That's phenomenal. But again, he's been in this program for quite a while, and sure, he dealt with some injuries early on in his career, but man, it just scares me going into this year being like, okay, Tyree Weathersby, Jordan Norman, the most important part of being able to defend and win in football defensively is getting to the quarterback. That's y'all's job this year.
I think Rodney Gardner's best coaching job is this year. He's going to have to step up to the plate and see what he can do, and I'm excited for it. Michael, ask the man what he's been wanting to talk about all night. Come on.
Well, before I ask
of
him,
course.
I do want to.
Look at this. It's crazy. He's just beating around the bush here.
Look, I want to give him an answer to the question he asked just a minute ago about the pro style offense. Because
let's hear it.
I think I've got an answer to this. So I think that he was trying to kind of mold that around Joey because he knew that he could run it. When you look at what all he has done with the quarterbacks since he's been at Tennessee. So in 21 and 22 with Hendon Hooker, he was able to play that up-tempo offense, and he ran it to absolute perfection. With Joe Milton in 23, it slowed down just a little bit because Joe could not quite handle that up-tempo the way that Hendon Hooker could. So I think that was Heupel, trying to play more towards his style. Then we saw it kind of pick up again with Nico. He was able to go up tempo again, and then last season we saw it kind of evolve and change again with Joey Aguilar. So I truly think that no matter if it's going to be Faison, if it's going to be George, he's going to try to taper that offense around what they're comfortable with, and he's going to evolve it that way. That's what I think is going to happen. It could be the up tempo. It could be more of that pro style like we saw last year, but I think that it's kind of being molded around the quarterback.
That could be the case, and I think that's a good argument for that, and there's a bunch of good reasons to do that. But I kind of keep coming back to the quote I heard from Kelsey Pope last year, and Josh Heupel said the same thing, is that after that Ohio State game where you did nothing offensively, he said we took a look at everything, stripped it all down, and really kind of tried to build it right back up. And so do you do that just for 1 year, or is that just the way you do it from here on out? And
that's a fair point.
To be what's going to be answered early on this next season.
I'll also add, I'm not going to put a ton of stock into it solely because I do think this coaching staff does tailor to the quarterback. We also found out that Joey Aguilar had serious shoulder issues, had a tumor in his arm, and I know that he did not have the arm strength to take the top off the defense.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much that actually played into the style of offense as well. Who knows that when you have these Fajon Brennan's got the arm strength. George McIntyre, honestly, has the arm strength probably can throw the ball 10, 15 yards further than Joey ever could. I mean, if you look at some of the pass plays last year, Joey's throwing everything he's got and still kind of underthrowing the wide receivers quite a bit. I mean, I'm thinking like the Chris Brazzell against Georgia very first quarter, and I mean, that led to a defensive pass interference. It was working out. I mean, I think I'd rather underthrow a ball than overthrow it anyways, but I'm just saying, like, how much did that play into the offensive game plan? Who knows? But I think, after seeing that and hearing that after the season, what Joey was going through, how much did that dictate the play calling as well?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some of that. But I also think, we were seeing it a little bit more, prior to that injury in that Georgia game. That's when we really kind of saw, because they didn't want to, put all the chips out there on the table for Syracuse and I forget who you played week 2 this last year.
Was it New Mexico State? I don't know.
No, that was
later. ETSU.
ETSU, because
Yeah.
UAB was week 4. And so, you don't want to put out there on the table for those two squads and then kind of bring it up something new to Georgia, and it worked really well. I think a lot of it's going to depend on, who they believe, whoever's the guy, his accuracy towards the middle of the field. I think that's a big part of that offense, and that was something Joey was able to do really, really well. But that's definitely something I'm going to be very curious in seeing. But I also think you're kind of seeing a regression, a change in the way offenses are run, not even in the college game, which you are, but also in the pro game. Like, they ran more 12 personnel, 13 personnel in the NFL this year than they ever have before. They like, heavier sets, more tight ends out there. And I think that's something that Tennessee could kind of, transition to as well as we see the game kind of evolve. It felt like, mid-2010s, the Art Briles, those guys of the world really kind of flashed onto the scene. It was spread. It was sexy. It was air raid. It was throw the football, score 50 points a game. And now it feels like, it ebbs, it flows. Nick Saban won a national championship throwing the ball 11 times. He also won a national championship throwing the ball 45 times. And so things change.
Changing a quarterback and
whatever. Things change. And they might be changing now back a little bit to more what it was like maybe in the early 2010s, late aughts.
Yeah. All right, so I won't make you wait any longer. Joey, your thoughts on this quarterback competition. Do you feel like Faison has got the advantage, or do you think that George, with his year of experience, is going to get the start? I'm not even going to throw Ryan Staub out there, because if he ends up starting, we got a lot bigger problems.
And to add to that, Deshaun Bishop kind of let that slip. He said in the quarterback competition on the podium, he said both those guys are, and then he was like, well, all of them. And I was like, that a boy. That a boy. I was like, we all knew. It's all good, but go ahead, Joey. Take the floor, man.
Way to catch yourself. Yeah, I feel like not to preview something we're about to talk about. It does feel like Ryan Staub is a little bit of the Ole Miss in the DGG battle, where it's like Ohio State, Tennessee, and then Ole Miss is like, oh, we're coming as well. That kind of feels like what Ryan Staub is like. Exactly. So you tell me there's a chance. So I think that if you're asking who has the advantage, I still think it's George McIntyre because of the year-long run and practice and just being around this team in the meeting rooms, the knowledge that he took in over the last year and a half since he's been on campus in Knoxville, Tennessee. I am not ignorant enough to believe that does not give him an advantage still, even after spring ball. But I still don't think he's going to be the quarterback. I think everything coming out of spring told us everything we needed to know. And that if those two guys are head and head, right, if they're neck and neck, if they're right at the top thing, this thing's tied, this thing's truly a battle, man, that should kind of give us the answer.
Because not even the younger guy, right? Just the high side, right? Like the top. What do you think the most potential you're going to get out of both guys? And if they're already neck and neck,
100%. So many things coming out. It's like if they already neck and neck after that was April, right? That was 4 months. Faison had been on campus 120 days, and you're already neck and neck with a guy who's been there for over a year. Like, let's just talk about rate of development. You are where he is in 4 months. It took him 16 months to be there. So if you guys are truly neck and neck, how do I think you're going to keep on developing over the next 4 months by the time we get to fall camp? like if we're just doing basic math here, like you got to lean Faison Brandon, and that's just taking out the player element of it. And then if you're taking the talent into it, man, you go with the guy who can make more plays when the pocket breaks down. That's Faison Brandon. I think George McIntyre is a better athlete than a lot of people give him credit for, but he's not Faison, right? I think that's such a big part of this offense. I think that's something we missed a little bit with Joe Milton in 2023, something we missed with Joey last year in 2025. Is a quarterback that can't just extend plays, but he can make it with his legs. I think Faison gives you that more. And then I think, like I teased earlier, there's the entire roster management side of everything.
Yes.
That, unfortunately, is a massive part of this game right now, right? And I don't know how that's going to get fixed. I don't know if it will get fixed, but that's the college football we're living in right now. And so if you're Josh Heupel, you look at it and say, okay, I could go with George, and he's got a decently high ceiling. He's got a lot of talent, but like, does that mean Faison's going to ever take a snap in Knoxville, Tennessee? Because if he does well, George is probably the guy in 2027. Is Faison going to sit 2 years? Not a lot of these guys are Ty Simpson, right? That's not the college football we live in right now. And so you go with a guy maybe who, you could get 3 years starting out of instead of the 2, and who has the higher ceiling, who you're probably paying a lot more money. it's starting to make a lot more sense in my opinion that it's
really
going to
good
be phase on.
comparison. I feel like George McIntyre is kind of like the Ty Simpson if he doesn't win this.
Yeah.
Do you not?
Yeah.
Like, very similar story. And the 5 to play 5, it's not like his chances are over. I mean, Fajon Brendan could go to the NFL in 2 or 3 years, and then he could still get his chance.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I don't think it's likely.
Yeah, I think that, Faison's not going to sit for 2,
No.
and be like, all right, cool, 2028, I'm the guy. You were a top 10 quarterback in your class. You're not doing that, right? And so I think there's nothing, like, it's human nature to have that part of the decision. Like, it's not computers making these. It's not just analytics, what gives us. It's like you got to think about everything, all the variables. And I just think they're more in favor of Faison. And also, at the end of the day, he might just be the better quarterback. And, like, that's what you want. And if everything else falls in line, phenomenal. That's great. But, like, who's going to give us the best chance to win? Who's going to be the most accurate? Who's going to make the least amount of mistakes? And I think a lot of that could be Faison.
I love it. Well, Joey, man, I'm going to talk about one more thing that's on my checklist. And you actually had posted a video about it earlier today.
Posted a million about it, man.
Yeah.
Skylar, it's been all I'm doing.
My bad. Didn't mean to disrespect there. No. Of course, we got to talk about DGG, man. It's been kind of crazy. There was a lot. Man, Pete Nakos has a thumb on this university. I don't know what it is, but it seems like when all the news breaks loose, he's one of the very first people to break it. And that's exactly what he did yesterday. And he flipped his prediction and said that he's going to the Tennessee Volunteers, put in a crystal ball. And then today we had 2 more analysts do the same thing, including Steve Wiltfong. So, Joey, I asked you this, man. DGG, is he a Vol or is he an Ohio State Buckeye?
Yeah, I think he's a Vol. At this point, it's like it's everything's leaning that way. And I don't know if you guys saw this. It was sent to me by one of my buddies in the multiple Tennessee group messages I'm in. It was asked, Jeremy Birmingham, who's like the Austin Price over there at Ohio State, was asked on a message board, is it safe to say the fight is over? And he said, I would think so, yes. And that came down, like 2 hours ago.
Was it the Buckeye fans' fault that sent him a DM?
It may have been. That might have been the final nail in the coffin.
Hey,
so,
I'm just saying these predictions flipped after that. I'm just saying, like,
yeah. And so that's a hilarious small side of this, but I think that at the end of the day, why I have remained confident, and I went back today and looked at this show. It was June 12th, so 5 weeks ago, over that a little bit.
Yeah.
I said at that point in time, Ohio State may have raised their limits, but they have a limit. I don't think Tennessee does in this recruitment. I think ultimately that's what's going to win out. Now, obviously, Tennessee's built the relationships. His best head coaching relationship is with Josh Heupel. Darrell Sims has built a great kind of, back and forth with DGG. I think he trusts him. You've got the guys who have been at Baylor, Jermaine Theodore, Gabe Osenda, that are on this roster. That gives him comfort in that way. I think Tennessee's done a great job in recruiting this, but you always kind of knew DGG meant more to Tennessee than it did to Ohio State because they have 3 guys in the top 25.
They also took Legend Bay last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and we took David Sanders the year before that.
That's right.
So there we go.
Well, I just meant they have that next running back already lined up.
100%. And they've got 3 guys in the top 25 already committed. They've got 6 in the top 100, and all that's a credit to Ohio State for how good they are, recruiting in this sport. It's a reason they've been at the top of it for a decade plus. But because of that, it was just too obvious to me. It was like, okay, DGG's Tennessee's number 1 guy. They're not going to just let him go. They're going to raise the price. They're going to make sure they get him. And I think that's exactly what they did. And it's so funny because I talked about this morning, man. You're going to hear a ton of Buckeye fans be so upset and be like, oh, Tennessee sucks. The only way they can get good talent is by paying a lot of money for it. And it's like, okay, well, the way you turn your program around is by getting elite players. And if you haven't had decades of success to sell over the last, a good bit of time, like Ohio State does, then sure, you're going to have to pay a little bit of money to get these guys. Guess what? That's the name of the game. That's recruiting. Like that's it. And so I don't think that's all of it for Tennessee. I think, you don't get to the spot to give an NIL pitch without doing the work before. You don't get the spot to make an offer without building that relationship and getting that trust in the first place. But I've always kind of felt good about where Tennessee stands just because of the priority DGG is to their class. And, man, I think he's going to be a great player. I think he's wired different than a lot of these guys. I think just the work ethic he has, I just think he's one of those rare kind of breeds of kids nowadays who he's just kind of about playing football. Doesn't like to do a lot of media, doesn't like to do a lot of talking, just likes to go out there and run the football and score touchdowns.
I read a report, and I want you to kind of verify, maybe you didn't, but he actually took his official visits and didn't want to hear the offer from the schools because he wanted to truly feel how the university was, the facilities. He wanted to take all that in without even knowing the numbers. Was that accurate?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think that was Simmons who had that report.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
you know, I've got no reason but to trust a guy like Chad Simmons in that area. I mean, he's got a lot more sources than I do.
That's just so cool to hear. I mean,
it is cool to hear, man. It's really cool. And I think he's going to be a phenomenal player. And I think that, you know, you've seen what Josh Heupel's done with 3-star running backs, with 4-star running backs. You know, you got a 3-star to be the 120th overall pick 2 years ago in Jalen Wright. You had a 4-star who was the 126th overall pick in Dylan Sampson. You have a guy who was a 3-star who technically was like a preferred walk-on for you, who has just got 1,000 yards and is going to get drafted sometime soon. And so, man, imagine what he's going to be able to do with a 5-star talent, top of the line. Man, guys at 247 are saying – he's not only the best running back they've evaluated in years, he's the best player in this class, just from like a ceiling standpoint. So I'm fired up about it. You wanted him. You got him. Hopefully, obviously, knock on wood, things can change, I guess, over the next 20 hours or so. But, man, I'm really liking where Tennessee's sitting. And I've liked it for a while, but especially after everything that's transpired over the last 48 hours. If you get a crystal ball, they don't mean anything to me, you know, if we're a month out. If they're 48 to 24 hours out,
that makes
pay attention.
Yes.
Yeah, pay attention.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the first thing that you brought up was the relationship that he has with the coaching staff.
Wait, so it's not about money? So it's
I mean, it's still about money, obviously, but no, you bringing up the relationship he has, because you know he has a fantastic relationship with the running backs coach there at Ohio State. Probably honestly, probably a better relationship than he has with any of the coaches at Tennessee. But
100%.
But you brought up a fantastic point that, you know, he's got a great relationship with Darrell Sims, with Josh Heupel. He's got it with multiple coaches at Tennessee. He's got it with one coach at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You know, there's a good friend of mine that I've worked with some, J.R. Rhodes. He runs the Big Ten Huddle podcast. He came on there today and he was like, yeah, he's got such a great relationship with the Ohio State coach and all that. You know, it's time for Ryan Day to put the nail in the coffin. And that tells me that he really doesn't have a good relationship with Ryan Day, because you're not hearing Tennessee fans, Tennessee reporters talk about, oh, Josh Heupel's got to put the nail in the coffin. Josh Heupel has been there every part of his recruitment along the way. So that tells me a lot right there when it comes to the relationships. And then obviously the money has a big thing to do with it as well. Yep. But I'm with you. I feel really, really good about this commitment tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think at the end of the day, if you want to get better and you want to win more football games, you got to get elite players and you got to get elite talent. And they're trying their best to do that. And that's the name of the game. And you know, I think this will be a good lesson. If this is something that ultimately does not work out, then I think you do take a long, hard look in the mirror and you say, okay, do we have to change up our strategy? You know, we've gone big money on a couple of players over the last couple of years. Not all of them have panned out like we hoped they would. Maybe we change things up. But if you're looking at DGG, as a lot of these reports are saying Tennessee is, as like a generational player, as a, you know, game-changing, can't-miss, day-one starter, you know, he's being compared to Adrian Peterson and Herschel Walker. You know, I expect him to come in there and just, you know, not get every single carry, because Tennessee's still going to rotate guys. But, like, I mean, he's going to be the bell cow as a true freshman. And if you're thinking that that's a guy you're going to be able to have for 3 years, awesome. And it's funny because $2 million now, and 3 years from now, it's not going to be that much money. That's like the Nico deal.
Exactly.
Right? When he was high school, when he committed, that deal was insane. And then by the time those rumors come around spring of 2024.
Carson
you're
Beck's
looking,
asking.
You're kind of looking around saying, man, he actually isn't making that much money comparatively. And so it's like things are going to change. It's like the salary cap in the NFL. Everybody's always the highest paid wide receiver, highest paid quarterback. When Patrick Mahomes did his deal in 2020 for 10 years, $500 million, everybody thought that was earth shattering. Right now, $50 million doesn't even get you in the top 10 of quarterbacks in the NFL. And so, like, things change. Money grows. It's just the way of life. It's the way of the sport. And so, this is an investment. This is your RB1 in 2029. So if you feel like he's a guy, 2 years of experience, you feel good about paying $2 million to, dude, let's run it, spot the ball. Let's go play some football and jam it down some people's throats on 3rd and 2.
So Joe, we got to ask you this. Rhonda is a longtime listener of ours. She's on here every week. She wants to know, are you going to be doing the live football games again this year on your channel?
Rhonda, that is a phenomenal question. I will be doing them.
Hey.
I'm fired up about it. I also, Rhonda, speaking of DGG, will be going live for his commitment tomorrow. I don't know what your guys' plan is. So
We watching you?
Okay, there we go. Everybody come on, join. We're going to be going live early. I believe 4 Eastern is when we're doing it. We're doing like an hour and a half build-up hangout. Me and my producer, we're like, man, we've got all these graphics on DGG that we're not going to be able to use much after this. Let's just go chop it up. It's July. What else are we doing in the office? Let's get an hour and a half build-up. Let's get it going. Let's throw a party, and let's hopefully get a commit tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, Joe, really appreciate you coming on the podcast with us tonight. But before you go, will you once again tell the folks where they can find you so they can follow your work?
There we go. Appreciate you guys again for having me on. I'm most active, obviously, YouTube. We're posting every single day. You can find that at Tennessee Football Talk by Chat Sports. You could find me on Twitter at Joey Petersen 8. Tweet nonstop about DGG over the past couple of weeks. That'll probably change sometime very soon. And then you can find me on TikTok at Joey_Vols.
Yeah, and if you need those links, we do have them in the YouTube description. Make sure that you go there, follow him on all those accounts. He does some great work over there, and we really appreciate you, Joey, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. Just a lowly Tennessee podcast, but we love talking ball with anybody that wants to come on with us.
Boys, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it sometime again soon.
Let's do
Absolutely,
it.
man.
Thank you so much,
will.
Joey.
Of course. Happy to be here.